You know, in an age of absolute giants, while Julius Caesar was busy carving his name into history, there was another king, way out in the east, building an empire that made even Rome, well, it made them nervous. This is the story of a ruler who's been mostly forgotten, but who rose up and challenged the greatest power the world had ever seen. So let's dive in and talk about the Dacian king, Burebista.
And look, this isn't just some local legend. The ancient Greek geographer Strabo, writing at the time, really spells it out for us. He describes how Burebista took this group of people who were worn down by constant war and through sheer force of will forged a power so great that, yeah, it was feared by the Romans themselves. That's coming from an outsider looking in, which tells you this was a very big deal.
To really get a sense of just how big a deal Burebista was, we have to look at the guy who was basically his contemporary, Julius Caesar. It's fascinating, really. While one of them was busy conquering the West, the other was unifying the East. You've got this incredible parallel of power playing out across the entire European continent.
I mean, the symmetry here is just wild. We all know Caesar is famous for conquering the Celtic Gauls in the West, right? Well, at the exact same time, Burebista was pulling off a very similar feat over in the East, crushing Celtic tribes that were on the move and threatening his borders. So he wasn't just reacting to things, he was a major force actively redrawing the map of Europe.
And get this, just look at how seriously Caesar took this threat. He wasn't planning some small border raid. He was getting 16 legions ready to go. 16! That is a massive invasion force, the kind Rome only brought out for its absolute most dangerous enemies. So in Caesar's mind, Burebista wasn't just some tribal chief. He was a rival king, leading a rival empire.
So the big question is, how did he do it? How does one guy rise up from this chaotic landscape of fractured, warring tribes and build a unified state that could actually make Rome sweat? Well, it was a mix of military genius and some pretty profound social reforms.
And his rise was incredibly fast. Around 82 BC, he kicks off this process of bringing all the different ghetto Dacian tribes together. Then, in 60 BC, you get this huge moment. He smashes the Celtic migration, which secures his northern and western frontiers. From there, he turns his eyes east and just systematically conquers all these wealthy Greek cities along the Black Sea coast. In just a couple of decades, he'd built a massive, secure, and economically powerful kingdom.
So what kind of military muscle could he flex? Well, according to Strabo, Burebista could field an army of 200,000 warriors. Now, okay, some historians think that number might be a little inflated, but even if you cut it down, it still points to a seriously formidable force. One of the biggest armies in Europe outside of the Roman legions themselves.
But here's the thing, and this is where Burebista's real genius shines through. Brute force alone doesn't build an empire that lasts. I mean, even Alexander the Great found out that a kingdom built only on conquest can be super fragile. Burebista got it. He knew that to make his kingdom stick, he had to create a unified Dacian identity. He had to give his kingdom a soul.
And this is where a guy named Dacian comes into the picture. He was the high priest, but you should really think of him as the brains behind the brawn. He was Burebista's closest advisor, a philosopher, practically a vice king. He was the one who helped design the deep, spiritual reforms that would actually pull the Dacian people together into a single nation.
And they had this brilliant three-part plan. First, Dacian made the cult of the god Zomoxes the official state religion, giving all these different tribes one common spiritual anchor. Second, and this one's famous, he convinced everyone to destroy their vineyards. Now, this wasn't just about stopping drinking. It was about creating a tough, disciplined, sober society ready for anything. And third, he introduced a single code of laws for everyone. Put it all together, and suddenly you don't have a collection of tribes anymore. You have a nation.
Okay, so now you've got this powerful, unified kingdom at your back. You're no longer just some faraway barbarian king. You're a major player on the world stage. Powerful enough, in fact, to get involved in the biggest political drama of the day, Rome's own civil war.
I mean, imagine you're Burebista. This is the ultimate strategic nightmare. The Roman Republic is literally tearing itself apart. You've got its two greatest generals, Julius Caesar and Pompey the Great, at each other's throats. If you back the right horse, the rewards could be immense. But if you choose wrong, total disaster. So what do?
He went with Pompey. And you can kind of see the logic, right? At the time, Pompey had the backing of the Roman Senate. He looked like the establishment, the safer bet. But the really amazing part is that Pompey was negotiating with Burebista as an equal, as an ally. It just goes to show you how powerful Dacia had become. Its army was seen as a force that could actually tip the scales in Rome's internal power struggle.
Of course, if you know your history, you know Pompey lost. Big time. Caesar won, and he was not the type of guy to forget who sided against him. But in this incredible twist of fate, that Roman invasion Caesar was planning, it never happened. Because Burebista's downfall, just like Caesar's, wasn't going to come from a foreign army. It was going to come from inside his own house.
The year is 44 BC, a date that is burned into the history of Rome, for sure, but it also holds this chilling parallel significance for the Dacian kingdom.
It's truly one of history's most unbelievable coincidences. In the very same year, both of these great rivals were assassinated. Caesar, famously struck down in the Senate by men who feared he'd become a king. And, thousands of miles away, Burebista was killed in a revolt led by his own nobles, a group they called the Burebistes. Two massive empires, two visionary leaders, both brought down by betrayal from within.
So why did they do it? Honestly, it's the oldest story in the book: power and resentment. The Burebistes were the powerful, wealthy Dacian nobility. They were the old regional chiefs that Burebista had forced into line. He had centralized everything: the military, the laws, the economy, and in doing so, he stripped them of their power. They just wanted it back, and they were willing to tear down the entire kingdom to get it.
And the result of their conspiracy was immediate, and it was catastrophic. The incredible empire he'd spent his whole life building just shattered almost overnight. What had been this unified force that Rome itself feared broke apart into 4 and then 5 little competing kingdoms. All that hard-won unity was just gone, sacrificed for personal ambition. The Dacians would never again reach that level of power.
So, we're left with this question, aren't we? The story of Burebista is this perfect lesson that a unified people can do incredible things. They can become a real force in the world. But his own downfall shows us that the biggest threat to that unity, so often, isn't some enemy at the gates. It's the ambition and the division that tears things apart from the inside. It's a pattern you see again and again throughout history, a timeless warning about just how fragile power really is.